Hi there, this is Amanda Frankel with Our Crafty Playdate, and today we are going to be making this holiday card, but I wanted to give you a couple of tips on cutting also. So we're going to do all this, and it's a great card, and it works for every kind of event. It's a great layout with a little designer series paper. Doesn't have, let's just pretend it's birthdays. Let's say this has little birthday balloons on it, okay? So a colorful little balloon paper, a solid paper that's embossed, your sentiment on a cutout, on a die cut, and you could do a little balloon cutout here and it would be perfect. So this layout actually works for all different kinds of events, but we're gonna mass produce some holiday cards, and so I wanna give you some cutting tips today. So let's get started. The first thing first, this is one of those cards that stands up. So it's gonna stand on your mantle like this. Most cards, as you know, open this way, right? But this one opens, it's a top fold card. So I want to show you how to do some quick cutting if you're going to mass produce Christmas cards. So let's get started here. I am going to use my trimmer here. This is the new Stampin' Up! Trimmer, and it's great. It does not have that little track thing in here, which always fell out for me. So that's really nice. And it also swings out into a long arm here so that you can measure up to 17 inches, which is great if you're cutting a big project for kids' schools, or if you, for example, are cutting a 12 by 12, this does it handily, because this is more than 12 inches. So we're good. But what we're going to cut first is the card base. So the color that I am using is Shaded Spruce. I love this color for Christmas. It's an intense green, which I really like. Normally, when you're cutting a normal card base, you would cut it this way in half, but we're going to cut ours this way, which would be at 4 1/4. Because it is 8 1/2 wide here, we are going to cut at 4 1/4. This is the cutting blade on your new trimmer, and this is the scoring blade. We're going to use both today, so I'll show you. So 4 1/4. And now I can make 2 cards. You can see how I will be able to make 2 cards from this. I've moved my cutting blade out of the way. I've still got my scoring blade, sorry, there. I just popped it right out though, didn't I? Which is great. You can change, this is how you would change out a cutting blade if it were not working, but you see how easily that just went right back in there. It's not a problem. And then I'm going to go to 5 1/2. Because this is 11 inches long, I'm going to move this to the 5 1/2 mark here and close it. And then I'm going to score. And now it's ready to go. All right. If I were really going to make many cards at once, I would have, before I cut this, I would have turned it this way and scored it at 5 1/2, and then I would have had both of them scored already when I cut it. So I should have showed you that, but that's okay. So I've got 2 cards here. You can see how that works. And now I am going to cut the white panel. So I'm already ready for 2 cards. So let's see. I'm going to need a white panel on the outside and a white panel on the inside. The panel, a standard panel for a card, is going to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than the other, than the outside. So if this is now 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I'm going to want it to be 4 by 5. So here's how I'll do that in the quick way. I'm going to put this on my, sorry, my finger is bleeding today in an odd little way. So dry. All right, I'm going to put this at the 1/2 inch mark right here. Move my scoring blade out of the way. And so it's a 1/2 inch on this side of the trimmer. I'm going to cut that off. Rotate it. I'm gonna save these. I always save these. I'll tell you why in another video. Set this up at a 1/2 also and cut that off. So I've cut off a 1/2 inch from each side, and now I am going to cut this at 4. And I know that this trimmer does actually cut 2 at once, and then I'm going to cut it at 5 1/4. That's 1/2 and 1/2. So I've just cut this in 1/2 and 1/2. And now I'm going to cut this one in 1/2. This is also going to be 5 1/4. Okay, and so now I have, for my 2 cards, I have the 2 panels that would be required. The one for the outside, and then of course. So there would be one out here, and then you would have one for the inside, and here are the other two panels. So that was a really quick way to make 2 cards with just 2 pieces of cardstock. All right, so a couple other things that I want to show you. When you're cutting your designer series paper and you're going to make more than 1 card, you are going to do it like this. You're not going to misplace your designer series paper. This is the paper that I'm using right now. I'm using this 'Tis the Season paper. I used all of that other paper, so I'm going to, with the holly, so I'm going to show you with a different piece. But it will give you an idea. Oh, this one would be cute. Look at that. This paper is great. It's double-sided. One side is usually a little less Christmas than the other side, so you really have some time to use it up. But I thought that's a little busy. Oh, that would be cute. Okay, we'll do the plaid. All right, so if I'm going to cut this piece here, this piece right here is 4.5 by 1.5, this designer series paper. And the designer series paper stack that I was just showing you comes in 6 by 6. So I can get a lot of cards out of each piece, and I wanted to show you how to do that. I am going to set this up at 1.5 and cut that 1.5 off. Okay, and I'm just going to set it aside for right now. Okay, now what I've got left here is going to be 4.5 by 6, and I'm going to rotate it just 90 degrees, and I'm going to cut it at 1.5. Pull that out, move this to 1.5, pull that out, move this to 1.5. Okay, so all of these now are the right measurements. They are the 1.5 by 4.5 that I showed you is this piece right here. This designer piece right there. And then this one is still 4.5 by 6. I'm going to put it in and cut it off. Well, I can do it this way so it doesn't get confusing. I can put it in at 4.5 and cut it. This is your only leftover piece here, and now you have enough out of that one piece of paper for 5 Christmas cards. So that will give you a lot to work with. And this is your only leftover, and of course we would not waste that. I will show you in another video also what to do with all of these. But in the meantime, this gives you a lot of options for your paper. That's all I'm going to do for cutting right now, but I just wanted to show you some easy ways to really get it going. Let's go ahead and assemble this card. I already cut the, here are from the other cards that I made. These are the extra little squares. So we're going to save all those together so that I can make something fun out of that. You know, let's go ahead and use this piece that we just cut. That's fun. I like to do that. Okay, so we can go ahead and glue this on the front since we can't do it with that glue though because I left the lid off, completely off. Who does that? It's like the kids leaving the lid off the toothpaste. Very little glue, as you can see. And since I'm not stamping directly on this piece, I can go ahead, I was going to say sheet. I can go ahead and glue it down. If I were going to stamp on it, I would definitely stamp on it before I glued it because I would potentially make a mistake and then I would just want to flip it over and nobody would know. But now I can go ahead and put this piece down that we just cut like that. And I'm just kind of centering it top to bottom and putting it off to the side. And I love how, sorry about that. That's horrible. I love how forgiving this glue makes it. It just slides wherever you want it. Now, I also have already cut a piece of red paper. This is 4 by 2 and it is a great measurement to cut from a 12 by 12 if you are mass producing these cards. You would go ahead and get a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of paper instead of 8.5 by 11 because 4 by 2 you would get lots of pieces out of this and you would be miles ahead. But we're also going to emboss it. So I'm going to set these aside and show you the embossing folders that we are using today. So they come in a set of 2, and they're kind of small, which is great for a couple reasons. One reason is this new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. It's gonna pop. It's okay, it's supposed to. There you go, it's all set up. They're portable, but even more portable than this one, they make a mini, and the small embossing folders fit easily through the mini cutter. So it makes it a great way to take something, and the best way to add something to a card is give it a little emboss. We are using this little dotted one because I thought in this card that it looked a little holly-like. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. The way you set up this new machine is a lot like your old machine, but if you didn't have an old machine, you might need a little help. So that is why Stampin' Up! In all their wisdom numbered all these plates. So each plate has a number on it. Upside down. There you go. And it will tell you which ones to use in which case. So we are using an embossing folder, so it looks like this. We use plate number 1. We put that down. And then it says we're going to put down a number 3 plate, which is this one right here. These 2 clear ones. We're going to put one of those down, and then you put your embossing folder. You always put the hinge in first. The reason that you put your hinge in first, by the way, with embossing folders is you need a place for the pressure to go. So if you put the hinge in first, it pushes toward the opening. Great. If you put the opening in first, it pushes towards the hinge, and there's nowhere to release that pressure, so sometimes they can break. And then it says right here to put another number 3 on top. So that's what I'm going to do. Don't worry if it's not straight in this machine. Just make sure that it's all the way on, because they're a little beveled here at the edges, and if you have it hanging off the edge, it won't emboss there. And I'm going to go ahead and crank this through. It's smooth, but I know you're still shaking, and I'm sorry about that. It's my camera set up. Okay, beautiful, and embossed. And the difference here is embossed, debossed. Debossed means pushed down, pushed in, and embossed is up. All right, we don't need this again right now because I already cut these other things out, but I do want to show you what I'm using so that you know. We are using a couple different sets here. I'm going to just set my goodies out of the way that I cut out already. We are using this brilliant set of labels. Look at that. This is called Tasteful Labels. Well, brilliant, tasteful, whatever. It's this one here that we used. And the great thing about these is you can see some of them have a stitch line like this. It stitches on the outside of the cut line and the inside, so you can use the positive or the negative. And the other ones have just a lot of little ridges with the cut line. And what that does when you cut it out, it gives you a little ridge around the outside. It's just a little more decorative, a little fancy pants. So we cut one of these fancy pants dies out of this one. And you can see you can do a lot with these. They would give you millions of opportunities. And we are going to stamp the Deck the Halls on there. And then we also used one other set of dies today. It is the Sweetest Borders dies. And this is not all of them because I have pulled a bunch of them out. But you can see there's actually a really very cool one we're doing in another video. And it also comes with some candy cane dies that are great. And holly dies, but we're just using these holly ones. You can see that you can cut out just a solid holly, or you could cut out one, and this isn't a cut line here. It is just a ridge. It doesn't cut all the way through to the edge. It cuts in, and that's what we use. So we use these and the little holly here, the little holly berry, and it gave me these. So see, you can kind of see through that. So it does cut, but it doesn't cut all the way through. So it just gives it a little more texture. If you wanted, you could cut the solid one in a darker color and the lighter one in a lighter green. You could cut this one in a lighter green and put it on top, and it would show through in the little holes, which would be very cute. But we didn't need to do that today. So we're just going to put these on there and little red holly berries with this die. And that's it for what we need to set up. So let's get stamping. Let's see. I did not get out my ink before I got started, so that's always fun. always an adventure. Okay. This is real red, which is what we're using. That's this color here. So we had shaded spruce, real red, real red. And that's how you open these new ones. I've got my stamp mounted on my block already, but I am using the Christmas is Gleaming stamp set. And it's this stamp right here is what I used. And this can go on the inside. It's adorable, but this is what I'm using on the outside. I love when I can use a stamp from last year that was in our last year catalog but got carried over. I love when I can do that because I'm going to go a little low here so that I have room for my holly. Because I just like to be able to use things more than one time. You know, it's you want to get all your money's worth out of your stamp sets, and this is a good way to do it. All right, so I've got that taken care of. It's stamped. My card that I was making, oh, here we go. I can go ahead and glue my red base down. So there we go, very little glue. And again, I just kind of centered it top to bottom on the last piece and just gave a little finger distance. You saw that I did not measure anything there. And honestly, you do not need to do that either. Okay, and this I put up on dimensionals. So let's grab those. Okay, here is a trick for you too, which I just did wrong. Here's a trick for you too. We are going to pop this up on dimensionals too over here so that it gives it a little more height. See that? Can you see if I go sideways? There you go. So you can see the height. So I'm not going to put a dimensional right under this corner like this because I don't want to layer it too tall there or it makes it extra postage to ship. So I'm going to do the 3 sides, but not this top corner. So I'm going to put my thumb there so I stop trying to put it there. And now I'm going to peel those off. I got one stuck under there. There you go. And I'm going to stick that down right there. You know what? I got a little blood from there on there. Sorry about that. Pretend like that's not there, and I promise not to send this card to anyone. Okay. So now we know that we're going to want these like this and this on top. How would I do this? I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right here. Attach a second leaf on like that. No big deal, right? And I'll put a little glue on the back here. Okay. And my leaves are just going to go right there like that. They stuck to my fingers, so they're going to slide around a little bit. That's fine. And you can either cut a dimensional in half. I've cut these sheets in half all together. You can either cut a dimensional in half, or you can use the mini dimensionals under this, but you don't want to use a whole big one because if you do, it kind of shows out from the bottom of it. You can see how that would show. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use a little half-Z. I'm going to be wearing that whole Z, but here's a little half-Z. All right, so I'm just going to take this and put it underneath. And that way it's not going to show. There we go. And now where it does show, I'm just going to poke it in with my finger. And I'm going to put that right over the little glue blob that I made, and it is set. So there you go. You've got your 2 cards. If you didn't bleed on this one, you can mail it. I'm not going to mail mine, but this one is ready to go. And that shows you how to do some cutting for some mass producing of cards too. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you learned something new about making your Christmas cards, because even though it is not late in the year yet, it sneaks up on you and you have time now. So get started on your Christmas cards and let's get them out of the way. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a great day.